Peter Brun, or Brun, I'm not sure. He's a senior fellow in International Center for Trade and Sustainable Development, ICTSD. And I call, where are you? Ah, there you are, sorry. I'll give the floor to you for, say, we'll have 2 hours in whole, 4 speakers, questions, commissions, and so forth. Well, 12 minutes. Floor is yours. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for inviting ICTSD to this very topical discussion that the European Parliament is having. ICTSD is an independent think tank based in Geneva doing research on trade and sustainable development. And this institution has looked into this specific topic that we are going to discuss today. In the back of the room, I've left some pamphlets and some memory sticks with some of these publications if you would like to look into the analysis behind some of the points that I'm going to make today. Let me start by taking a more general picture that what we're discussing here is certainly a very topical and important issue. It is having both social, economic, and environmental impact if we're doing it in a right manner. But it's also addressing, in terms of the regulatory perspective, a lot of policy areas like energy security, energy access, climate change mitigation, green growth. So you have a share in many policy areas, really, by finding the right path to this. If you look from a business perspective, and I want to dwell on that a bit today because I actually just came from the private sector. I worked almost 7 years in a wind company, a global wind company, and therefore have some experience with what are the concrete problems and considerations from a supply chain perspective when we are discussing these issues here. And again here, what is at stake for many of these clean tech, green tech companies today is to secure a level playing field competition out there, to secure that we will have a scalability of the supply chain and the market, to be able to deliver on the promise to politicians that, yes, this technology will indeed be cheaper, provided we will have this market increase and scalability to go for big scale. And with that, the private sector will make the needed investments in jobs and local jobs around the world. This slide you cannot read. Hopefully that the Secretariat will be distributing the presentation afterwards. But this is a compilation of development perspective or arguments why we need to do something special in the area of environmental trade and goods. There are ample development outcomes, perspectives, potential if we're doing this. So it's not a zero-sum game. As a matter of fact, it's a plus-sum game for everyone concerned. Looking at the situation in developing countries these days, we're looking at increased demand in energy, significant increase of demand in energy towards 2050. Because of the increasing populations, because of the increase in their economies, because of their habits of living the life we are living in the West. And therefore, it is very important that these countries will be having the opportunity to get this green technology at affordable prices. So it's very much about this also we are talking about. It is access to energy. And that access to energy is certainly not coming if we cannot do something about cost of energy for green tech. Now let me move the perspective to the trade flows, because I also think this is important that we all know what we're talking about. In many years, many decades, we have seen a very strong growth in green tech, clean tech technologies in the world market. It's correct that out there is a crisis in the industry. I don't want to escape that fact. It is difficult times in the marketplace, but if you look at it on a trend level, these technologies are growing, and hopefully they will be growing also in the future. But it's actually not for sure. There are barriers out there that are endangering this development here. If you look into the exports and imports, for example, in the wind power sector, you will see that Europe is having a big share on the import-export side here. The reason why the import is also high here is because it includes intra-EU trade also. But there's a lot going on. EU is a very, very big player within the wind power trade. The EU is also playing a big role in solar PV. I mean, contrary to the public perception that this is only dominated by China, it's not so. China is a big player, as you can see in these trade flows here on the import-export side, but so is the EU. Also, what we see in the solar PV sector is that the supply chain is spreading out. It's being outsourced, but there are still high-end components like inverters, which are still maintained in Europe and United States of great value, and technology development is very much coming out of the European and the US market still. So, talking about trade flows, what dominates the trade flows today in terms of trade regulation is very much the tariffs, but also a lot of non-tariff barriers. It's tariffs in this area, which many of them belongs into industrial goods, are not escalated normally to a high level, and therefore is not constituting necessarily a high barrier. What is constituting a high barrier is the non-trade barriers, like local content requirements, for example. But of course, it would be good if one could go for the last step. I mean, now we have the APEC initiative setting a threshold of 5% in industrial goods within this sector here, and it is very compelling to maybe go for the next step, which is zero tariff. I mean, in this, and certainly that would be good news in the common industry. But what is very much on the companies' minds these days is what happens in non-tariff the non-tariff area, like local content. I'll give you some examples from the industry. This is a slide showing the development over relatively few years in increase of local content requirements. It happens to actually happen in the same years where we have seen the financial crisis and the aftermath for that. Maybe there's not a big connection, maybe there is a connection. But the matter of the fact is, today the industry is faced with a lot of local content requirements in many markets, and basically it is the copy-paste role model for any new emerging market. Let's make a local content requirement, and it's a very complicated strategy because yes, this might be able to be applied in a BRIC country like China or Brazil or maybe India, but it does not work for South Africa, for a middle-income or middle-sized country, or even a small country. So it's a problematic development. I'll come back to that later. Also, if you look into the solar PV sector, they are also burdened with an increased number of local content coming in. And yet another documented development in the market is the increase in trade defense, safeguard measures, anti-dumping, and now also the panel cases coming forward in the dispute settlement system. What I've just showed you in the last 3 slides here are clear market evidence that things are going in the wrong direction, and there's a bad trend in this, and it's a complicating trend. If you are a company, can you imagine how it is to plan your supply chain, where to make the investments? with this kind of patchwork carpet that is evolving now. It's a major barrier, I can tell you. Why is this problematic? It's problematic because the industry now is competing with other energy technologies, and in the marketplace, it's all about cost of energy these days. If you see this graph, you can see that solar PV and wind also to some degree has gone down significantly over the last few years. If one were to take a longer time frame, then you would have seen how wind have been moving also. But there's a lot of steel and special metals in wind power equipment, so there was also limitation to how far you can go down. But they can go down. You can see that wind is now actually competitive, or very close to competitiveness in fossil fuel prices, cost of energy for fossil fuel price, many places around the world. And the learning curve trend of solar PV is also going in the right direction. And this is the contract that the industry really would like to have made, or are making with politicians, that yes, they can be delivering on the lowest cost of energy, provided that we will still have expanding markets, we will have global markets. So this is what is at stake, basically, that if we are going the other way towards renaturalization, that we are seeing clear patterns of in the marketplace, then I can tell you that trend curve here will stop and make it problematic for the industry. This is why the industry thinks the APEC initiative is a very, very good political signal. It's good news, and we'll come back to how good news it is, but it's on a general level, it's very good to see that kind of the world is engaging, and they have been doing more than has been undergoing in WTO Environment Services Committee for 12 years. I'm sure that my colleague from the WTO will argue that point, but now they're there. We also see a lot of development in the FTAs. These areas are being addressed, fortunately, in the FTAs also. And we are seeing now a pattern, maybe also with the transatlantic partnership coming up here, that there will be built a critical mass where it would be very tempting to go to the next level, either in form a plurilateral agreement or to the end stage of a full multilateral agreement with this scope here we're talking about today. So it's potentially a good development. But I think from an industry point of view, the consideration now is how can we accelerate this? We don't have 12 years to wait for a final result on this. We need to cash in on the momentum that could be out there. Also because the industry is in crisis at the very moment here, and we need to address some of these things here. So looking on the APEC list, and now I'm close to finish up, it is, politically speaking, a very good move. When we look on the very specific commitments, it's 54 subheadings, which are engaging on a maximum of 5%. Looked at this level here, this could represent around 70% of the world trade. So it is, potentially speaking, a very significant move seen from the APEC side. And if the EU would join here, we will cover more than 95% potentially. But the problem about the APEC maybe is that this is not a great commitment. Many of the APEC countries have tariff lines below 5%, so it's not a huge commitment we are talking about. And therefore, if you ask the industry, they will be wanting to look maybe for an APEC Plus or an APEC Plus initiative. And that is what I think the EU really should be looking at here, how to foster that positive development that the APEC initiative has set out, and make it deeper. Also, the APEC initiative does not address the NTBs that I was talking about, the local content measures. That is not addressed currently in the APEC initiative. So we need the EU to broaden it and deepen it in terms of where we are now. and I'm looking forward to some of the discussions that we will have on what will be the best vehicle for that. I repeat my argument, I also see the transatlantic partnership as a potentially important vehicle in order for all parties to come to the negotiation table and make that almost global agreement within this area here. And then, before I close up, I just want to demystify one thing. Talking about local content, some people believe this is a clever industrial policy, securing the cash flow locally, securing local jobs. But the matter of the fact is, local content is already in the DNA of these technologies here. This is an example from the wind sector where you can see a lot of the supply chain, the installation, the service maintenance, the decommission is by nature local. Then there's also possibility of localizing transportation, sales and planning, assembly and manufacturing. But all these things will be depending on market size and compatibility in the market, whether you can offer a good price and so. But potentially you can go the whole way, but not every market will go the whole way. The point is, anyway, there will be a lot of local content in these investments. Also in terms of solar PV sector, a lot of emphasis is on all the panels that we are importing from China. Not much discussion about the jobs that are in installation industry here and service and maintenance industry in Europe. Not to talk about the high-end companies in the solar PV sector doing inverter technologies. These are also important trade flows. So it's not a zero-sum game. It's a plus-sum game. There's something for everyone here. So I will stop here. Please help us secure a level playing field at the global level as soon as possible. Let us use the next 2 years to secure that. Thank you very much.